Thank you very much for joining. The UK has a new media channel, a new TV channel called GB News. And it is led by some people who you would consider till some years ago quite mainstream. Actually, its director is Andrew Neil, who is considered one of the most prominent journalists in this country. And it includes some people who supported Brexit, some people who are in favor of free speech, and some people who back in the day you'd call something like old Labour. So if we have, let's say, a political axis, I would say that GB News its general tone is slightly to the right of maybe, I don't know, Hillary Clinton. So we're talking about this kind of deviation from what is considered allowable opinion. So you would say, okay, what are the news here? So the news is that within 24 hours of this new channel launching, there has been a very prominent and consistent campaign targeting people who advertise on GB News. And the idea is you should not advertise on GB News, because if you advertise on GB News, you are promoting or sanctioning hate. Now, this has had some effects. So we've had companies such as IKEA, Nivea, Kopparberg, which is apparently a beer or something like that, Grolsch, the Open University, Octopus Energy, and some other companies withdrawing their advertising or saying that we are going to pause it from now and we're going to see what happens, because we need to test, we need to check whether this new outlet is in accordance with our values. Now, of course, to say from the beginning, everyone has the right to boycott and everyone has the right to call other people to boycott. So this is not we are not going to say that this is an issue that infringes in any way the rights of free speech of GB News. However, I think it is important because it says something very specific about the culture we live in. And also it says something very strong about what is the mindset and what is the way these people are viewing the world, these people who are running these campaigns. So I have some interesting quotes. I have some interesting insights in terms of what are the reasons they're giving for why people should not fund GB News. And also, I have some very interesting moments and comments and quotes from how these companies explained why they do not wish anymore to be associated with GB News, basically very quickly caving and very quickly succumbing to the pressure by these campaigners. But to discuss this today, we have Jonathan Hoenig. And Jonathan, so what's your first take? So I think we'd agree that this is not a free speech issue, but there is something weird happening here, right?
Yeah, I mean, and Nikos, welcome. It's great to be with you, with our viewers, our listeners from all over the world. Many of them, like me, probably weren't aware of what GB News was. I honestly thought at first moment it was maybe Glenn Beck News. Thankfully, I discovered it wasn't Glenn Beck News, but it sounds like it's actually not too far off. Here's no, that's not what I wanted. I have a little screenshot of it. I thought I had a screen. Here it is. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. You know, it kind of looks the style a little bit borrowed from maybe a little Fox, a little, you know, they've got show this, show that, and, you know, little videos and stuff like that. This doesn't look
Notice here we have, for example, the Free Speech Nation. We have Andrew Doyle. He's the persona behind the Titania McGrath Twitter account and someone who is a supporter of free speech. Of course, we disagree with Andrew on how to define free speech, but you understand what is the cultural tone, let's say, of this new outlet. So there are people who are uncomfortable with the culture as it is, and they believe that there should be more debate and we should expand what is allowed to be debate and what orthodoxies are allowed to be challenged.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you, Daniel, for the generous super chat. Daniel is fighting back against the dislikes on our chat. So maybe that's a great way to do that, to help us with super chat, and also to add your like and to subscribe to us. To subscribe what we're doing here, you know, among the few organizations in Britain and around the world really discussing these free speech issues, not from a particle politicized perspective, but from an ideological perspective, not a theological perspective, but an ideological perspective. One that's very important. And Nikos, you're right. I mean, look, I, as a consumer of news, always feel like I welcome more news and information.
Jonathan, you are. Oh.
Sorry. Even as a young person, for example, it was always kind of fun and interesting to go and see lectures, for example, with those whose opinions I disagreed with. We were talking about speech. We weren't talking about fists. We weren't talking about even, and Rand actually talked about this in particular. I believe it is in a new textbook of Americanism. The difference, for example, between speaking out and protesting, aka blocking the streets, and the difference between that. The difference between you're using reason, using your ideas, and using force, like your bodies, to block entrance to us. So a big difference there. I think what you're describing in Nikos, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is this cancel culture. So when something like GBTV or anything else comes on, and believe me, we got some crazy wacky shit like this in America. I don't know if GB is wacky, but we got some ridiculously wacky news channels in America. The first thing you can do is turn it off. You can turn it off, don't support it. But to go out of one's way, I think first of all, you're for hate. Well, there's some things that I do hate. There's some things that deserve hate. I really hate Hitler. I hate oppressors. I hate dictators. I hate those who violate rights. So there's nothing intrinsically wrong with hate. And it's just the same way that Rand wrote about extremism. But to go out of one's way, especially with a channel that doesn't have and you see this, for example, with Tucker Carlson all the time. People try to get advertisers to boycott. Tucker has a history of saying some pretty controversial things. I think that is the marketplace of ideas. But to kind of just come out of nowhere, get on advertisers to say, pull your support, pull your this, without really even kind of any demonstrable evidence of kind of bad behavior, if you will, I just think it's going the wrong way. We should want more speech. We should have more debate, more critical thinking. And you don't get that by silencing those who have a little bit different perspective than you.
And that's what I want to make very clear to people. We're not talking here about a Tucker Carlson level of, let's say, culture warriors of the right. So Andrew Neil, who is running this endeavor, in some ways became viral in the United States when he, quote, destroyed Ben Shapiro. So we're talking about someone who, compared to Ben Shapiro considered him mostly a leftist. And then, of course, Shapiro apologizes, okay, I didn't realize who this guy was. But we're talking about this type of what we'd consider a centrist. And also, we're talking about people who traditionally you'd consider more with the left. People who are, for example, when it came to Brexit, they were in favor of Brexit because they thought it would empower local communities and it would empower the working class of the North. And we're talking about this type of narrative. Here's, though, what I find most shocking. You could say, at least with Tucker Carlson, that, well, Tucker Carlson had said some things. The question is, what has GB News said that made these campaigners go after it? So what I did, I spent something like an hour checking around the websites of the people who coordinate this campaign. So, for example, there are things such as a website called Boycott GB News. And there it says, GB News has launched, and the threat of a right-wing, pro-government UK Fox News is becoming reality. That's it. That's all you need to know for the campaign. Now, you could say these people are weird, who knows them? There's another website which is way more respectable, which is called Stop Funding Hate. And again, Stop Funding Hate, if you go to their website and try to find exactly why they are campaigning against GB News, you won't find anything. I checked all their tweets. I checked everything that had to do with what website. I found nothing. I found a link to another campaign which said something like, and this is an article from months ago, that this is going to be something like the Fox News of the UK. And why should we care about that? Because they said Fox News played a role in things such as the 6th of January protests. Now, I think this is factually completely wrong. Fox News, in many ways, threw Trump under the bus, or the majority of Fox News. So presenting Fox News as this pro-Trump vehicle is simply not true. But even if this was the case, so what evidence have you got to say that this is going to be the Fox News of the UK? Could it be the fact that you have some people who somehow deviate from allowable opinion? And actually, I would agree with you, Jonathan. I'm glad that there is a voice that at least claims that we want more free speech, that we are concerned with culture, and we are concerned with the tribalism of identity politics. And I have people who I appreciate that are regulars there. For example, I saw Claire Fox being there, Joanna Williams being there. More power to a channel that's going to give more airtime to these people, I think, because they have things to say that more people need to hear. And again, we disagree on various things, but I think culturally, overall, they are a force for good, and they are a force in terms of supporting the ideas of individual agency, the ideas of that people are not basket cases that need the government all the time above our heads. Therefore, I was very, very surprised to see this. So at least if you have a campaign, have something tangible that you ask people not to support someone because of this and these reasons, not because you think this is going to look like Fox News and supposedly this is the end of the story. Or what do the other people said? A right-wing media outlet. So the mere fact that somewhere out there, there's one right-wing media outlet is apparently a cause for concern.
Yeah, and you know, Fox News and what I hear when people oppose that, and although I wish Fox News was this, what it really is it's individualism, isn't it? It's a sense that there is some type of an ideological opposition to the collectivism that we all just take for granted in the culture. There might be some opposition to that. Now, I want to just say, you know, there's a lot of talk about cancel culture. I even mentioned, you know, turning off ideas that you don't support. I mean, for me, Nikos, as you know, the only thing I watch on TV is barbecue cooking competitions. So I don't even know who these people are, Ben Shapiro. I don't watch any of it. So, but the opposite of turning it off is supporting the ideas that you do believe in, especially now when people can start a network, as we have literally on a shoestring, for some pretty radical ideas. And honestly, you know, I mean, GBTV, I haven't watched a minute of it. Unless they have a barbecue cooking competition, I probably won't. But my guarantee is they're nowhere near as radical as we are. And I say we as objectivism is. None of us represent objectivism, but as objectivist ideas. And I mean, I'll even remember, you know, Nikos, back when I was on Fox a little more frequently, whenever I had the opportunity to present kind of a principle from objectivism, whether it's, you know, I am not my brother's keeper, you know, or why do I have, you know, what, you know, I don't want to get into the details because there's some pretty funny one-liners, but you know, people were really aghast. I'm just disappointed. Well, let me just finish with our support. So thank you for supporting these ideas. Mary Aline, once again. Mike says he's fighting cancel culture. Thank you, Mike. And you know what? You're doing better. You're supporting reason. You're supporting individualism. That's what we're doing here at the Ayn Rand Center UK. Emily M, thank you very much for that contribution. Mary Aline, once again, our quote, fairy godmother. We put gods in quote here. Scott has a question, Nikos, we'll get to, and when he asks, isn't this cancel culture applied against media organizations deemed not woke enough? We'll get into that. Hugh James, thank you. Bread sandwich. Bread and witch. No, bread sandwich sounds good. To me, the bread is the sandwich. Who needs anything else? And Mary Aline, once again, CJ Vermeer, giving us a great contribution. You guys are doing what you need to do to support ideas, not just bitch slapping the left. Everyone's doing that, polemics, but supporting the real radical ideas, those of us here at the Ayn Rand Center UK. So thanks for being part of our community. You know, and Nikos, I'll just say, I mean, your point is very well heard that, you know, actively engaging, and if there was some evidence, I mean, look, you pick your thing, but, you know, to silence opinions just because they are opposing almost means that you don't have a good answer. You can't answer them. You're afraid of answering them. So you have to just smear them. And we see this from Krugman in America all the time, in terms of Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand loved killers. Ayn Rand, wanted to throw your grandmother off the building. So this is really the idea, to smear your opposition because you really have no fundamental argument on your own. I think that's what's happening with GBTV.
And our friend asked, is it because they're not woke enough? Exactly. It's 100% this. And again, notice here the dangerous mindset. The dangerous mindset is that if there's someone out there who does not completely follow the line, because again, here we're not talking about a new Ayn Rand Institute or a new, this countercultural rebels with a real term of the world, or philosophical rebels. We're talking about someone who some years ago, you wouldn't even notice them as somehow ideologically, quote, deviant. But the mere fact that such a voice exists means that it has to be crushed, not by force. Again, they have the right to do so. And it's particularly I think it's particularly that there are people like Andrew Doyle or Inaya from the Free Speech Union. It's particularly these voices that really annoy them, because they understand that this idea that you have to tolerate, not morally sanction, but tolerate in terms of that they have a right to say opposing views, to these people are anathema. But I want to focus also on something else. I want to focus on how these companies replied to this campaign. So let me read you some of the tweets by which they cave into this with this. So they said, a boss said that we, blah, 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 want to ensure advertising isn't shown on political channels. So what does political channels exactly mean, dear people of Boss? Could you explain this to me? So which are apolitical channels? So does the fact that people
isn't BBC full of politics?
Yeah, don't even get me there. Don't even get me there. An even better one, OVO Energy. So they said, OVO strongly believes that a kinder world is a stronger one. We strive to promote inclusion and diversity across all OVO spaces, and we do not place our brand in any places which distribute or promote hate. So again, could you point me at one example when some of these people, quote, promoted hate? And do you realize the weirdness of saying that we strive to promote inclusion, but because some people told us that these people are not good with zero evidence, you say, okay, yeah, now something needs to be done. My favorite one, however, was IKEA. And because I had to actually reopen my browser, I've lost the IKEA thing. But basically, IKEA said something like, we are actually, no, I'll find it because, okay, here it is. So this is the reply of IKEA for removing their advertising. So they said, we have safeguards in place to prevent our advertising from appearing on platforms that are not in line with our humanistic values and vision to side with the many people. First of all, I think this doesn't make sense syntactically, IKEA, but again, what do you mean by your humanistic values? And also, what do you mean your vision to side with the many people? So how is GB News not siding with the many people, and how does it go against your humanistic values? So I have way more examples, but I don't want to tire people. But again, notice this almost, I would say, intellectually and spiritually dead kind of voice that just throws slogans. There's zero essence there. And I would be very interested to try to engage one of these people in chat. Like, could they hold a discussion for like 5 minutes? Not hold a discussion in terms of, can you discuss in abstract terms? No, like, can these people even talk in kind of real language for 5 minutes where you tell them, okay, dude, look, what are your values? Why do you hold these values? And why do these people that you don't like don't hold these values? And my expectation is that they're completely collapse and there'll be no position, because these things are slogans. These things are telling me that I'm a second-hander. I'm just repeating like a megaphone, like a tape recorder. I'm repeating things that I've heard, and that's as good as it can get with me. And
Nikos, you have a whole book that's coming out I believe, on tribalism and collectivism. And
Yeah.
doesn't this almost seem like that? I mean, you've got people who are boycotting a show or boycotting a network that they've never even seen before. All they know is that the pitchforks are out for GB, so let's get on that thing. So there's just no thinking. They're surrendering your mind to the mob. And I'm not defending GBPD. I haven't even seen it. But that idea of just that mob mentality of not just refuting an argument, but wanting to destroy an argument and using the free speech mechanism of advertising to do it.
And I would be ashamed if I would go with the mob to attack someone without having a personal opinion. Like, I didn't even want to come to this show and talk about these campaigns without going to their website, because maybe, you know, they have good data, they have good evidence, but I couldn't find anything. So how can these people, so basically what you're doing here, that's exactly what tribalism is. You say, I surrender my mind is incapable of making sense of the world. So I'm surrendering my mind to the group or to the people I trust, to the people I follow. And that's the way I go through life. And this is, imagine what this will do to your self-esteem if you live your life that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really right on the money. Now, it doesn't mean, and, you know, we could play a little game, for example, Nikos, Rand talks, for example, explicitly about, for example, corporations not supporting the universities. So for me, at least, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Ms. Rand or objectivism, but I know from my business, wouldn't support a lot of organizations, wouldn't advertise in a lot of organizations. Now, look, I advertised in the back of Objective Standard for a long time, one of which because I wanted to support them. It was also a good audience for me. And Objectivism have a lot of money. Ken Moelis, I don't think I'm breaking any confidences, from Moelis and Company, came up to me and said, I really enjoy your advertisements. He didn't become an investor, but that's okay. He noticed them. But something like, for example, Alex Jones, Nikos, I wouldn't advertise on, and I don't care how many well-heeled advertisers he had. So I don't think what you're saying is that people shouldn't discriminate about what they watch or what they support financially. That's not what you're saying.
No, I'm saying you should discriminate, but discriminate in terms of judge. But judging means I look at reality, I use my mind, and based on what is out there in reality, I come up with something. I make up a judgment, and based on this judgment, I go through life. I don't think that this is what these people are doing, because again, show me the evidence. What did you see in GB News that makes you think that they're promoting, quote, hate? Or you mentioned university. Sorry, I really need to read this as well. This is how the Open University replied to the critics who told them, why do you advertise in this channel? And they said, the Open University's mission is to be open to people, places, methods, and ideas. I'm not sure exactly what it means, be open to places and methods, but whatever. We have blah, 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 blah. We have therefore chosen to pause the advertising with GP News channel. Our mission is to be open to people and ideas. Blah, blah, blah. We have therefore chosen to pause the advertising with GP News channel. So my question is this. The person who wrote this, didn't you see the contradiction there? Didn't you have someone, a friend, to tell you, dude, there's something, or whatever, there's something weird here. You're saying you're open to people, places, and ideas, and then in the next line we say, we have therefore chosen to pause our advertising. So that's my question. Don't they see it? Doesn't it come out of the screen to tell them, look what you're writing? Or is groupthink so powerful? Is it so important for you to to signal to your tribe that, look, I'm part of the good guys, I have nothing to do with these bad people, that you can compromise your mind so much? And by the way, I had the same question when I saw the now famous Kathy Newman, Jordan Peterson interview. My biggest thing in my mind after the interview was not, oh, why did you attack Peterson? My biggest question was, how can you compromise your standards so much just to make a point that, oh, I'm on the right side and I hate the right people? Like, what are these people proud when they read these things? Do they see it and say, oh yeah, I did the right job? So anyway, that's my...
They don't want to be ratioed, right? It's all about, and by the way, thank you, Mary Aline. Thank you, Robert. Robert is asking, why do we have a lot of dislikes today? And I explained to him, Nikos, that they don't like your beard. They think it looks greasy and like it's full of bugs. No, we're getting a lot of bots right now, which is hot because they're here for Rucka, but we're getting the return for it. So counter those bots that are giving us the dislikes with likes. And
that's a good question, Ho.
shares.
So who did we piss off? So we have pissed off the people in the far right at some point. We've definitely pissed off. So basically, we've gone against.
Objectivism is always pissing off.
Yeah.
We're
so we've pissed off religious fundamentalists. We talk about Islam. About that
abortion.
Teacher who lost his job because some fundamentalists threatened him. All the time we talk about the left, we talk about the far right. So there are many people we might have pissed off. So anyway, if I wouldn't really care. And again, if you have an argument, if you disagree with something, put it on the comment. The dislike doesn't tell me much.
And that's what I got to say, Nikos, is that I don't want people to interpret our defense, if you will, of GBTV as or certainly on objectivisms aligning with the so-called right. I would kind of, depending on the leftness of the left, I'm not going to go to bat for like Alex Jones, but if it was like a slightly left, I don't know. I used to go on leftist channels before I was exclusive, all the time, as long as it wasn't, and Dr. Brooke, for example, your own Brooke, mentions this all the time. Like, he won't debate a racist. He won't debate a communist who's an adult because his belief is that they should know better. But Dr. Brooke and Dr. Bernstein and many others on our channel debate and appear in leftist things all the time. It's not a sanction. It's a debate, and it's an engage of ideas. And you know what? When we as objectivists engage in ideas, we win. We have reason on our side. We have reality on our side. So turn off what you don't like and support what you do. AKA,
here's a surprise, people. Here's a TV remote. It has this thing. It's called off. You can press it and GB News disappears from you. Problem solved.
Well, thank you for supporting us, for being part of our conversation. That's what's so great now, Nikos, is thanks to those evil tech companies, the ones we got to curtail, literally anyone can start a network. And, the most valuable thing out there is your time, people's time. You only have so many hours in the day, certainly to devote to something like media. And we're just so honored and pleased that you are, devoting 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, a couple hours. We've got so much on the network here at Ayn Rand Center UK, the Daily Objective, the Weekly Objective, Daily Objective en Espanol. I believe there's a Spanish show now. Nikos, you've got a sex show now that's all about and threesomes.
It's not a sex show. That sounds too weird.
No,
it's not a sex show.
Well, it's a sexy show. The point
it's
is
a sexy show,
what
definitely,
we're doing here.
Which, by the way, it's taking a break this week. It's like Ross and Rachel, we're on a break, but we're coming stronger next week. So if you don't see us today, it's not a problem. We just have a scheduling, a time, how it's called thing, but we're back next week with more.
So it's not that the show is so sexy that it's been censored just yet.
No, but if someone would censor a show for sexiness, probably that's the show that would get it.
Well, the conversation continues on Clubhouse. Thank you for supporting what we do. We'll be here tomorrow with more of the Ayn Rand Center UK, keeping it focused on the fundamentals, keeping it focused on the philosophy, with a little fun too. That's called a wrap up, Nikos. We'll see you on Clubhouse, and thank you once again.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.